He is a 4 times best-selling author, has podcasts and an international radio show. His teachings are used by more than 80,000 leaders and game changers around the world. Ben's trained hundreds of millionaires and helped a Fortune 100 create an empathy video game. And he also, and I love this, he also helped launch the world's largest magazine, and I bet you're not going to guess what it is. AARP, so all of us who are of the age where we know about AARP, and I don't mind dating myself, very cool magazine. What Ben's talking about today is about how to 2 times, 5 times, 10 times your profits and the marketability, because most books don't make it, right, Ben?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tricky. A lot of people, they put their expertise into a book thinking that it's going to work, and then it doesn't work.
Oh, yeah. And you teach them how to do their entire thing in 5 weeks. Yeah. Which is amazing. I remember meeting some of your students at one point in one of your programs, and you were great. So I've been really looking forward to talking with you right now, because sometimes you don't know what the problem is, and Ben's someone who can guide you through. And if you've ever tried to post or publish anything on Amazon, you know that you have to know the game for that. So you've got the background, Ben. Let's go ahead and launch.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for being here. Thank you for giving me a moment to get the slides in place. And this is Book Success Confirmed. This is the art, science, and psychology of writing and finishing a lead-generating, client-attracting, world-changing book. And yes, this is the Digital Marketing Edge Summit. A book can be an important asset for your business, even if you're just focusing on all sorts of goodness in the digital marketing world, and you're in the right place at the right time with the right person, Dr. Damano. And so good job for making the choice and for being here. And for me, I'm going to invite you to take notes, remove distractions, close the door, shut down Facebook and Twitter, put your phone on Do Not Disturb, turn off all the internet, instant messengers, tell your loved ones that you are giving yourself this investment of time for yourself, for your business, and for the people that you serve, right? Really, really important. And keep smiling and keep breathing, because we are on quite an adventure together today. And did you know 9 out of 10 books don't work? You might have heard me saying this to Demont just a couple of minutes ago, right? Because most people make the mistake of saying, "Oh, I'm an expert. I'm going to put my expertise in a book," but they don't think about the other important things like the art, the science, and the psychology. So I'm going to be talking about that today. And when that happens, right, when these books fail, people end up losing a dozen years and $2 million at least. You might be like, $2 million? What do you mean? Right? If you think about all the potential income that you're losing out on with a book that never came to fruition, that didn't help you get those clients, right? You're not going to necessarily get that money back so quickly. You might not get back on the book horse, so to speak, so quickly. So you can certainly lose time and opportunity, right? So you want to make sure that the book works, and you want to make sure that it works from the front, like in the process of the writing, in the process of the developing, right? Because not good, right? When your book doesn't work, it's not good. It's not good for your business. It's not good for the people you serve. Not good for your attitude, not good for your stress, and certainly not good for your happiness, right? But instead, when you do your book right, you can open doors, you can create strategic partners, and you can get leads and referrals automatically, right? That is the beauty of a book and the power of a book. And today we're going to be talking about the fast track to guaranteed book success. And sometimes when people hear the word guaranteed, they're like, how can you guarantee anything? There's nothing guaranteed, as the saying goes, other than death and taxes. Well, this is about 99% guaranteed, right? And you'll see exactly why as we go through.
Yeah.
So this is for you, whether you're starting a book, in the middle of a book, or almost done with your book. And this is for you even if you're thinking about a book. And this is for you even if you're not thinking about a book, because the things that you're going to discover through this session and what I'm going to be sharing with you are applicable to all sorts of aspects of your business, to your marketing, etc. So stay here with an open mind. or as they say, a beginner's mind, right? Even if you're like, oh, I've heard these things before, or some of these things before, keep yourself open to the possibility of discovering something new today. Look at this with fresh eyes. And even if you're not thinking about a book for your business, right, think about how you can apply these strategies and principles to other aspects of what you're doing, right? So my mission here is to be a catalyst for you, and I'm going to catalyze the heck out of you because I believe you can make a big impact in the world, right? You wouldn't be here if you couldn't do that, if you didn't think that was even a possibility for you. Like, yeah, you're here for your business, of course, but why are we in business, right? To create freedom for ourselves, to make a difference in the world on whatever we're going to make that. And thank you for doing that because it's super important. And, we have the privilege and opportunity to help make people's businesses and lives better, and especially our own, which is super cool, right? So the formula that we're going to be following here that you're going to be digging in a little bit with me is the psychology, the art, and the science of writing a book that gets you leads, helps you attract clients, create partnerships, all that good stuff, right? And what's important about this as well is that, this is what I use for myself. This is what I teach my clients to use for themselves, right? And to keep things simple, right? Because if you keep things simple, at least at the beginning, right? Think of your frameworks, your steps, the process that you take somebody through, in a small digestible package, then you start understanding the small digestible package, or the people that you serve understand that little package, and then you can add detail, go deeper, step by step by step, right? You don't start out with a 42-step process, right? You start with 3 steps or 5 steps and take people deeper as you go, because that supports the learning, supports the transformation, and really supports the possibility for them, right? Because it's time for you to reach more people with your ideas, with your story, with your message, right? And even if you're like, oh, I don't have a story, you absolutely have a story, right? If you are alive and hearing my words right now, you absolutely have a story, right? So take a moment and imagine your life with your book done, right? Imagine the leads coming in automatically thanks to your book, right? Imagine people responding to you differently because you're the author of a book. Oh my goodness, you wrote a book, you must know something, right? Books have power, which is so interesting, right? Books have been around for a really, really long time in human history, right? So there is gravitas to books, and even unfinished books, right? You tell somebody you're the author of a forthcoming book about X, they're going to assume that you know something, right? They're going to assume you're an expert in that topic, even if the book is not done yet. So I often remind people, hey, you can leverage your book long before the book is published. You can leverage your book.
I'm sorry, Ben, I broke in, but that's just astounding. The first time you talked about this, I was going, oh my gosh, you can leverage the book before you even publish it? So cool.
Yeah, thank you for calling that out. Yeah, it's something that so many people have never learned, never thought about it. And again, even if it's not a book, right, you can do it with a course, you can do it with a talk, you can do it with a few other things, but the book's got that extra weight and that extra power, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing, right? And I don't know if you've ever been to a wedding or seen on video, champagne glass pyramid, right? And the trick here, the magical thing is that you pour the champagne into the top glass, and then the champagne or apple cider, if you like to keep it non-alcoholic, right, cascades over the top, fills all the glasses evenly. So instead of manually trying to fill 91 glasses, if you have 6 layers of glasses, right, you're just pouring into one, pouring into one, pouring into one. That top glass is your book, right? And that champagne or that apple cider is your wisdom, your expertise, all the good stuff that you're teaching in there. And the nice thing about this is when you have your book done, you can turn your book into at least 25 assets, some of them almost instantaneously, right? It could be marketing assets. You can turn it into a course. You can turn it into a podcast, turn it into a radio show. You can turn it into a series of videos, right? Tweets and posts and blogs and articles. And you can license material based on your book, right? There's so many possibilities here. And the nice thing about this is that you've done the lion's share of the work at the beginning, and you've dialed in the messaging and the language and you've done the research and you've talked to your ideal clients, you've done all these things at the beginning. So anything that you create is much more aligned from that point, and you're not reinventing the wheel. So this is something that's super, super important and will make your life infinitely easier should you choose to put it into practice, right? Christina, who was a client of mine, did what I said, right? And she was so excited. Last night, her book, right? 9 p.m. last night. This was a little longer ago than last night, right? But her book became #1 from following the guidance. And Christina wrote a real cool book. And I want to point this out because she wrote a book about philosophy in the corporate space, right? So if you're having questions of like, I'm not sure if my topic can apply, maybe it doesn't apply to business. Maybe it does, right? Don't sell yourself short, explore the possibilities. And I'll talk a little bit more about how that's possible for you. So real quick, I want to invite all of you as we're here to take a moment and, you can write this down or you can reflect on this for the next minute or so. What is one thing you do to be great in the world, and who do you love to serve? Mm-hmm. Right? So what's one thing you do to be great in the world? It can be a big thing, a little thing. And who do you love to serve?
That second part, who do you love to serve, is something that's so important when you're doing this.
Yeah, I appreciate you saying that, Demont, because sometimes we get so into the strategy and tactics of business. It's like, wait a minute, what's important here? Why are we doing this? Who are we doing it for? And then that's a beautiful anchor point or North Star through this whole experience, because sometimes it works really well and sometimes it gets a little bumpy, right? So if we come back to these kinds of things, it can really be nourishing and re-inspiring and keep us on track. Another one here, who will you have to be or have to become to build the future you want, right? Who will you have to be or who will you have to become to build the future you want? And this question sometimes can be a little bit tricky because it's a challenging question, right? Because you might have to stop being some aspect of yourself. You might have to not watch so much Netflix, right? You might have to cut down on how much beer you drink or how much you smoke or, all a great many things, because we can't always create the future we want by being exactly who we are right now, because who we are right now brought us to this point. And sometimes we have to let go of some things, maybe quite a few things, to create the future that we want for ourselves and for the people that we serve. Another one here, what values guide you to your ideal future, and what does success look like? Right? What are your values, and what does success look like for you? Right? You don't have to let anybody else define success. You could be inspired by other people, but you don't have to let anybody else define success for you.
And that's a big part of that branding.
Yeah.
That's a big piece of it, because your values, your purpose, your passion, all those things are about branding.
Yeah, I really appreciate you connecting the dots there for the audience here, Demont. It's really, really important, right? Because, anybody can throw some color right onto a logo and call it branding. And it's like, wait, there's so much of a deeper foundation involved.
Right.
Yeah. So thank you so much for saying that. Another one, and I want you to really, if you want to close your eyes after I read this out loud or after you read this on the screen, if you had 1 minute left to live, what would you share with the world? If you had 1 minute left to live, what would you share with the world? For some people, this is an inspiring question. For some people, it's an upsetting question. For some people, it's both.
Yeah, I think I would be in that last category.
Yeah.
But that 1 minute left to live. What is your legacy?
Yeah. Demont, I think you know this, but for you viewers and listeners, I was a hospice volunteer for several years when I lived in San Francisco, and incredible talking to people, who were on their way out the door, and some who felt complete upon departure, right, and some who had regrets. Right. So, there's a deeper invitation here also to live without regrets. So whatever you're doing with your business, your story, if you're going to write a book, if you're going to create a podcast, if you're going to be a speaker, however you're going to bring yourself and your business to the world. Like, take your shot, because none of us really knows how long we're going to be around, right? And, and my invitation is really to do it from your heart, because there's such a beautiful opportunity for you. And then last one, back to books here. What do you need to get your book finished and published this year? Right? And you might be going, well, how could I possibly get a book finished and published this year? Totally possible, right? I do that with my clients all the time. Dumont talked about getting a book done in 5 weeks, and I'll clarify that slightly. I teach people how to get a manuscript done, what I like to call a messy manuscript, or a rough first draft, right? Done in as little as 5 weeks, right? And then publishing takes a few months, mostly because the editing takes a little while, but you can totally get a book done this year, right? A lot of times people think, oh, it's 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, or I've been trying to write my book for 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, right? And if that's your situation, it's not a judgment, right? I'm not being critical of you by saying that, but there are ways to move it forward, whether you're still in idea stage or just trying to push your way through the pages, right? So if you think about what do you need to get it done this year, right? The answers are probably closer than you think. And yes, it's totally possible. So good news, right? It's easier than ever to get a lead generating high quality book done, right? And I'm going to continue to talk about that through this process. And thanks to your book, you can stop competing for business. Right? This is something that's so important. I don't know your perspective, you viewer, you audience, you listener right now on competition, but I grew up as an American, right? Competition, teams and business and all those kinds of things. You don't have to subscribe to that. You don't have to buy into that. There's enough for everyone. There's enough money, there are enough clients, there's enough opportunity, right? So you don't have to compete. And the beautiful way of not competing is by understanding that you are truly you are truly unique. And even if you're doing something as perhaps common as like accounting, right? Nobody can do accounting like you can, because nobody is you, right? There's never been anyone like you. There's never will be anyone like you. No one has your stories. No one has your experience. No one has the impact you've made with the clients and people that you've served and the lives you've changed, right? So don't sell yourself short in this. And please remember, right, that you don't have to compete for business. And as soon as you unsubscribe, if you will, from that way of thinking, so many opportunities and possibilities open up.
Oh,
and that worked for me. Dumont, go ahead.
Valencia, is that what?
Yeah, thank you. So this is so. Ladies and gentlemen, and all other genders and designations beyond those two. I live in Valencia, Spain right now. I moved here just a little bit more than 3 months ago, and this is a photo of a year ago when I was in a small town in the south of Spain called Lopagan, when I made my decision to come live in Spain, right? So you can tell the happy face, yeah. Right? And, this living in Europe has been a dream of mine for decades.
Okay.
Right? And my book was a big contributor, I should say, to getting myself here, right? And I'm happy to be here. They're not kicking me out, which is a beautiful thing, right? I have a visa that will keep me here for a while. And whether your dream is to move to another country or have tons of free time with your kids or whatever the case may be, right? You can do almost whatever the heck you want, right? Maybe you can't be an NBA basketball player, like that stuff gets a little bit tricky, but pretty much everything else is open to most people. And we are very privileged. Like if you're here right now watching this, or you're catching this and recording, so much of the world doesn't get the opportunity that we get, right? So we have a beautiful, beautiful chance to do things, that most people don't do. And chances are that, even if we feel like we're struggling with money sometimes and, having a hard time being an entrepreneur and not being being sure where to get started, right? We are so gifted and rich compared to so much of the world. And it is really, we're so blessed for that. So just a reminder to you and to myself to not take any of it for granted, and to take those gifts, and use them to serve humanity. And I've created a lot of success for myself, right? And some of that came from the shifting in my mind of, I have to get my book done. I have to get my business done. No, I have the privilege to get it done.
Yeah.
Right. And I learned from somebody recently, I have to take out the garbage. No, I have the privilege to take out the garbage because, oh my goodness, I can walk.
Yes.
And I can take the garbage out to the curb and somebody's going to come pick it up and take it away. That's an amazing thing. Right?
It's all about gratitude.
It really is. It really is. Sometimes gratitude is not easy, right? Because we get caught in, whatever we get caught in.
Yeah.
The noise and the thinking and our monkey mind and the chatter and the story and all those kinds of things. And, smile, take a breath, and just, remind yourself. And if you need to put up some sticky notes around the house, thank you, gratitude, then do so, right? Because we certainly do have the privilege to get all of these things done.
Yeah.
Right. So real quick, Dumont, gave a beautiful introduction of me. Dumont, thank you for doing that at the beginning. And, I want to say something that's really, really important. My success, it wasn't always like this, having, written 4 books and now living in Spain and having a super successful book coaching business, all of that stuff. It wasn't always like this. And you may have heard the term mess to success. You may have heard the term hard-earned wisdom, whatever the case is. I have my version of this. I have my versions of this, right? And part of why I want to tell you this real quick is because it's interesting. It's a heck of a story. And number 2 is because, if I could create success based on what I'm about to tell you, you can totally nail it out of the park with one arm tied behind your back. Right? I kid you not, right? Because for about 15 years of my life, I used to do a whole bunch of drugs. All the white drugs, the powders, the pills, all those kinds of things, right? And I never knew that it was a problem because I had a good job and I was making things happen. And then I found my way to rock bottom, as you will do sooner or later if you're doing too many drugs or drinking too much alcohol or whatever that out of control addiction, wherever that takes you. And I found myself in India 2 times. The first time I had this experience of facing death 4 times in like 72 hours. I kid you not, right? My bus almost going off a cliff and running from a wildfire and encountering a poisonous snake and then encountering a mountain lion. Right? 72 hours. And
if you can survive that, Ben,
Yeah, that's certainly a good start. And going back to gratitude, that experience helped me really clarify 2 things. One was the gratitude for my own life. Like, holy crap, I'm alive. I'm going to do something with this life. And I'm going to cherish it as much as I can. And I'm going to be thankful as much as I can. And number 2, it really galvanized my purpose, right? Like, I want to let me try that again. I want to I'm going to try that 3 times. I want to help people wake up to who they are, right, and truly be free, in their hearts and in their minds, and then to be able to help a whole bunch of people with that capability, and that insight for themselves, right? So that was my first trip to India. My second trip to India, and this is the photo here in the Himalayas, right? I hiked through the Himalayas for 9 days. And the kicker, no pun intended, was that in getting my boots fixed right before the hike, because I didn't have new boots, because I was at the tail end of being on drugs and not thinking straight, and not showing up with new boots, right? I got my boots fixed, and the fixing led to 2 big blisters on my Achilles tendons. And then I got to walk through the Himalayas for 9 days, for 6 or 8 hours a day. I think it was about 144,000 steps with blisters on my Achilles tendon. Every single step hurt a lot, right? And it wasn't just the pain, right? But it's the judgment and the shame and the anger and you idiot and how could you and all these kind of things. And then I remember day 6 of this whole experience, looking up at the Himalayas going, oh my goodness, everything's so beautiful. Why is everything so beautiful? I'm not on drugs. Why is everything so beautiful? And I realized, oh my goodness, all of that pain, all of those difficult steps were keeping me in the present moment like I had never been in my life before. I was like, oh, this is what they're talking about. This is why why meditation teachers talk about the present moment. This is why spiritual teachers talk about the present moment. The power of being present and being aware changes everything, right? You're more attentive, you're more in tune, you're more intuitive, you listen better, you're a better leader, you're a better teacher, you create better products. you sell more stuff, to the right people in the right situations, you help and impact people, and you are happier, right? Which was such a mind-blowing thing to me. So if you all aren't listening, if you all are listening to this and you haven't started doing some meditation, I really, really encourage you to get on the bus, so to speak. And even if it's a minute a day, start making it happen.
Yeah.
So everything I'm sharing with you is possible when you accept where you are right now, right? A lot of people, they're like, I want the successful business. I want the $1 million. I want whatever I want, right? And that's great, right? Having a vision is great and making a plan is great, but you have to accept where you are right now to be honest and truthful for what do I need to cultivate? What do I need to let go of so I can create the dreams, right? So you can start telling your new story. This is what this is all about. And Dumont is giving you an amazing array of speakers these next several days, right, to help you start telling your new story. So yes, strategies, yes, tactics, yes, approaches, yes, software, yes, an app, right? So many good things, but it's really about start telling your new story and recognize that this is possible. Because like I said, if I could do this, right, you could do this with one arm behind your back, right? So I wrote my first book, Marketing with a Heart. Didn't really do very well, but it got me moving, right? I broke the seal. I wrote my second book, Influence with a Heart. I actually wrote it in 3 weeks, even though I call it a 5-week book. Because somebody asked me, it was really cool. Somebody reached out to me on LinkedIn. I had just changed my business name to Influence with a Heart. Used to be called Marketing with a Heart. Somebody reached out on LinkedIn. They're like, hey, we have a visiting business people coming to Stanford University. Do you want to do a 2-day training for them? Right? These visiting business people are going to go visit, Twitter, the headquarters of Twitter, Google, LinkedIn, and Facebook, all in Silicon Valley. Then they're going to come to Stanford and they're going to get this training. Do you want to do this training? And this is a big deal because I am a broke, struggling entrepreneur at this point. I have this big, beautiful opportunity. And I'm like, yes, absolutely, I'll do it. So I do all of my analysis and, figure out who the audience is and how I can serve them. And I work out the contract with the event planning company. And I sign the contract. And the event planner says, we're so excited to have you. And I said, it's my pleasure, right? I'm so excited to offer this training. By the way, and this is something that I learned from my business coach, and this is something that you can do with your book, with your next book, right? I said, hey, I'm going to show up with autographed copies of my brand new book for everyone in your audience, 126 free copies of the book, right? Because I want to make this really, really memorable for the participants. And the event planner's like, wow, that's amazing. Thank you so much. And I said, you're welcome. Hung up the phone and I went, oh, crap. I have to write that book right now because I made a promise for a book on this date, and I had to deliver the books on this date 6.5 weeks later. Right? So I wrote it in 3. I got it produced in 3, showed up with books. The event went really well. The event planning company hired me several more times for more speaking gigs. The audience, one company, hired me the following year to speak at their headquarters in Sydney, Australia.
Remember that.
Right? And then while all of that was happening, and here's another thing that you can do with your book, I got a cover of the book done, this cover, right? Even before I finished writing the book, I put it up on LinkedIn and I'm like, hey, look at me, I'm writing this new book. Oh, look at me, it's coming out soon. And somebody reached out to me and they're like, hey, we're creating this mindfulness and empathy video game with a Fortune 100 company and MIT. It's going to be played by 20,000 people. We saw your book. Do you want to talk to us about writing the curriculum? And I was like, of course I want to talk to you about writing this curriculum. Like, had I ever written, a formal curriculum before? Was I a curriculum writer? No, right? But people saw something in the book and in my subsequent conversations with them where they ended up hiring me for 10 months of consulting, right? So my entrepreneurial struggling of the year before, I made like 7 times as much money the following year, all thanks to writing a book really fast, right? So really, really incredible. And then I wrote my 3rd book during COVID, which became the basis for my mastermind, really helping people write books, teaching them how to write books. And then 3.5 weeks ago, launched book number 4. And this was the first time I co-wrote a book, right, with my friend Donna Kunde, who helps people with radio shows and podcasts, right? Her method is really clever. Instead of creating a podcast, you create a radio show. It gets heard in 184 countries, and then you chop each of those shows up into 4, and then you have 52 podcasts as well, and you do all of that in 3 months.
That's
Absolutely brilliant. So we launched this book 3.5 weeks ago, got #1 bestseller in 3 countries, right? So I just keep doing the same kinds of things. I keep following my own method, right? And I help my clients do the same, right? So a bunch of people, been able to help people who make an impact with their messages, who are making differences, in business, in DEI, in the DEI space, leadership, future thinkers, like the whole thing. Even have a lawyer who teaching mindfulness to lawyers, right? Because attorneys certainly need to relax, right? And over my journey, I've invested much more than 6 figures in my success, so you don't have to, right? I mean, you can if you want to, right? But you don't have to. And that's the nice thing about working with great mentors and great coaches and great teachers, right? Whether it's me or Dumont or someone else, right, from this summit, right? Take their wisdom and apply it. Take their methodology and apply it. Take their mistakes and don't repeat their mistakes, right? Beautiful, beautiful opportunity here. It took me 10 years to figure out a business that worked, right? You don't have to wait that long if you pay attention to me and if you pay attention to the people throughout this summit, right? Monica, one of my favorite clients, she wrote her book. Before she was finished writing her book, she got a 5-figure speaking fee with a global organization.
How
right?
cool is that?
Oh my God, so amazing. Her mind was blown because she had literally just started her business and she had an in to be able to talk to this company, which was cool, right? So, the door was opened in some way. And then I worked with her to be able to say, hey, present your what you're going to talk about like this, and let's put together an offer like this, and it turned out to be 5 figures, and she's just been building from that point.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So what I said earlier, right? The formula for this lead generating, client attracting, world changing book, which is what I've been talking about, right? It's the psychology, it's the art, and it's the science of writing the book. Mm-hmm. And the psychology, the official term is the stuff. Right? The official term is the stuff. And this is going to apply if you're creating a course, if you're doing a keynote, if you're doing a training, if you're doing a workshop, pretty much any time that you put yourself out there, and especially when you start really taking a stand for your message and for the people that you serve, right? The stuff is going to come up, and for different people, it's different stuff, right? But it's things like fear and doubt and judgment, like self-judgment, maybe shame. Is anybody going to read this? What if it doesn't work? What's my family going to say? What's the public going to say? Writer's block, which actually isn't a thing, right? Even though people think it is. But all of this stuff comes up, and the stuff, is stuff that has come from our childhood, like before we were even verbal. It could be from religion, it could be from school, it could be culture, it could be family, it could be all these places, but it's all these beliefs that have been embedded that we didn't ask for, right? So we got all these beliefs, and then you start stirring the pot by writing your book, and the stuff starts coming up. And what I learned, and this is so transformational, I really want you to take this to heart here, is that when you're writing your book, especially, you don't have to try to solve for the stuff. You don't have to unpack the stuff. You don't have to do years of therapy to try to, fix the thing. It's so much easier to just say, you know what? Chances are I'm never going to be rid of this stuff, right? The stuff is just going to come up whether or not you ask for it, because you get triggered sometimes, blah, 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 blah. Mm-hmm. Nothing's wrong with that. No shame. It's just part of our human experience. So the trick is not to get involved when it comes up, right? It comes up, the shame, the fear, the doubt, the uncomfortable feeling, the anxiety, whatever that is, right? What I teach my clients, and you can practice this, and I invite you to practice this, relax your head and relax your face and smile. Mm-hmm. Relax your body, right? And you don't try to push it away, because that never works, right? You relax with it, and you just let it kind of be over here. And it might come up again, and relax and let it be over here, and keep smiling and relaxing, let it be over here, because if you try to fight it, it's going to come back stronger. But the more you relax as it comes up, right? Let your whole body relax. Mm-hmm. It's going to eventually work itself out. It's going to eventually soften, and might come back another day. It might come back in the next minute. We don't know, but keep relaxing. You might have to relax 50 times. That's fine. Keep relaxing, right? The Buddha, the historical Buddha, you may have heard of the Buddha, right? The Buddha talked about the tranquilizing of the bodily formations, right? This is exactly what it is. And this is actually central to what the Buddha teaches about, eventually waking up and reaching full enlightenment is tranquilizing the bodily formations, right? So you don't fight with the stuff that comes up, right? You just relax with it. You don't fight with the weather, right? You don't fight with the traffic.
Well, some people do, Ben, but
thank you for saying that, right? We can have a tendency. I've fought with the traffic before.
Oh yeah.
Right? But there's a better opportunity here. So really just invite you to keep smiling, keep relaxing, and keep letting go of this stuff, right? So there's your psychology. So the art of writing a lead-generating, client-attracting, world-changing book is to do the right things and avoid the biggest mistakes. And there are quite a few mistakes that you can make that a lot of people make with their books. And I can't get into all of them today because that would be quite an adventure to say the least. But I want to talk about some of the biggest ones that people make. And I apologize for the doorbell. I live in Valencia, and sometimes people just ring the bell so they can get in the building. So sorry about that, if you can hear that. So one of the biggest mistakes is thinking that there's not enough time to write your book, right? This is not true. There's totally enough time. And if you work with a coach like me, for example, I have a blueprint to follow. I have a method to follow, and I encourage dictation, right? When you dictate and dictate through a process, when you dictate, when you speak, you are expressing in your authentic voice, right? You're not trying to figure out, is this a good word to say? Do I have the right punctuation here? None of that, right? The words, because you're an expert in your stuff, or you're becoming an expert in your stuff. So your authentic voice is coming through, and you can use dictation not just for a book, right? For a course, for content, whatever the case may be. But in this case, a book, 1,200 words can come out of your mouth in 7 minutes. 1,200 words in 7 minutes of dictation is 5% of a 25,000 word book.
Wow. Ben, you told me to dictate when I interviewed you before, and I recently had an incident where I was really out of commission and couldn't really work. And that had taught me. I kept dictating, and you're so right. It comes out in your real voice. I mean, I'm a recovering academic. That's a big thing to deal with.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate you sharing that, and I also really appreciate you taking that to heart, and that it worked for you. Real quick, a couple of the other biggest mistakes. One is that you have nothing to say. The belief that you have nothing to say, you totally have something to say, right? By default of you being a unique individual. So just, put that to the side. And if it comes up, relax your head, relax your face, smile, right? Just like before, don't get involved in that story. Another one is to get professional help for publishing your book, for writing and publishing your book, especially both sides of that equation. But if you're self-publishing, which is the way to go for most, like 99% of us, do not self-publish by yourself. Get professional help for the self-publishing, because there's a gazillion ways that you can do it wrong and not get the results that you want from that whole experience, right? And instead, spend the time getting clients. Spend the time that you're saving, serving your clients, get clients, get the money to cover the publishing, right? And you're good. Last big mistake here is a lot of people, and this is kind of funny, right? Like, we want to help, and we want to serve, and we want to provide value. A lot of times people put too much value in their book. Like, they put too much stuff in the book becomes overwhelming for the reader, right? They can't deal with it because it's so dense. So they abandon the book. Or the other one is, we put so much value in the book that the reader feels like they can do everything on their own. So they get this sense of false closure. Like, I can do this. I don't need to contact Dumont or Ben or whomever, right? And then they don't get the deep transformation that we can offer them, that you can offer them by spending a longer amount of time with them, right? Because the book, certainly you want to provide some value, absolutely, but you want to invite the people to take next steps with you, because a longer time that they're with you, the deeper and more longer lasting transformation that you can provide, right? So really, really important. And then the other aspect of the art of writing a great book here, right, is to debunk the biggest myths and misperceptions that people have about your stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This is so important because I tell my authors, I tell anybody who will listen, thank you for listening, right? The purpose of your book, say like 80% of the purpose of your book is to help your readers, is for you to help your readers shift their beliefs and perspectives from disempowering beliefs to empowering beliefs, right? You want to show your readers what's possible, because if they don't believe whatever it is that you're offering is even possible, whatever information you give them isn't going to be worth a damn, right? So you have to help them let go of false beliefs, misunderstandings, debunk the big myths, right? People say, oh, there's not enough time to write a book. I'm saying, no, you can actually get a manuscript done in as little as 5 weeks, right? There's a myth debunked right there, right? So whatever your stuff is, sometimes in marketing language, they call it, overcoming the objections, right? This is overcoming the objections because people have a set of objections, false beliefs, misunderstandings, right? When they are talking to you, whether it's about your program or even about the stuff that you're offering in general. So help them see what's possible, right? Not only in your book, in anything that you're doing, because if you empower them into possibility, A, they will trust you, and B, they will be much more likely to take action and actually get results. Right? My client, Anne-Marie, super duper cool. She wrote her book with me, and somebody found her book and they invited her to speak at Google.
Wow.
Right? She did not reach out to them.
Wow.
She said, oh my, and they paid her. Right? So,
all good.
So, yeah, exactly. Right. So many things are possible, right? So do not sell yourself short in possibility. Don't hold expectations tight in your fist, right? Because that doesn't work, right? But hold possibility in your hand, because great things can happen if you let them, and they're often even better than you expect. Not always on the schedule you want, but they can be better, much better than you expect. Right. So last part here, the science of writing a great book, right? Lead generating, client attracting book. Conversations, the relationships, and revenue really come down to one thing. And most people don't do this with their books. Most coaches don't teach this, right? But what I teach my authors, and you can take this to heart for whatever you're doing, have conversations with your ideal clients about the book you're writing as you're writing it.
Yeah.
Don't ask for their opinion, but get a set of data. Ask them all the same questions so you can understand the trends, so you can get the language that they're using, so you have the lens for the book. And because that conversation with your ideal client about the book you're writing lays the groundwork for them to become a client, or lays the groundwork for them to become a strategic partner, right? So you can actually generate revenue before the book is done by having these conversations, right? And this is where the guarantee of the book really comes in, because if you talk to your ideal clients and understand their biggest challenges and goals and dreams and how they want to be helped and all that kind of stuff, and you put that in your book, and then you go to those people and say, hey, you want to buy my book or read my book, your book is absolutely going to work because you wrote the book for them.
Yeah.
And you wrote the book for them because they told you what to write, and you paid attention, and you looked at the trends, and then you put it all in a book. You can't go wrong. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So right here, right, it is the gold, right? This is the fast track to guaranteed book success, and probably the biggest gift I can give you today. I mean, I gave you a lot of great gifts, a lot of great insight, all applicable, but this thing, whether it's a book, a podcast, a course, a keynote, whatever it is, talk to your ideal clients about the thing you're making so you can make it geared toward what they need right now, and you can use the language that they're using right now. And that completely changes the game.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And last success story that I want to share, I can't say who this is for confidentiality reasons, right? But one of my clients got a 6-figure consulting gig by having these conversations about their book before the book was done, right? So this is somebody who works with big companies, right? And big companies can pay, these 6-figure fees, right? But they got this by doing this exact process. A 20-minute conversation was the beginning to 6 figures, and they're still not done with their book. I'm going to bug them later. get that book done, right? So, hey, just wrapping it up here. I promised that in our time together, you would know the keys, right, for doing your book right and avoiding the $1 million multi-year mistakes that most people make. And here we are. So I hope I delivered on all the stuff. If you missed anything, you can certainly follow up with me. But thank you so much for your time and attention. Thank you for being at the summit. Thank you for catching this in recording. But you can always reach me on LinkedIn. You can always email me, right? Happy to support. And really, there's only one thing to do. Get your book done.
Ben,
and with that, thank you.
Ben, I got to get my book done. You're right. You're right. Every time I talk to you, I know that, but this year I absolutely have to do it. I want to do it. So I will be in touch. And you have a mastermind program, don't you?
I do. Yeah. I call it an implementation mastermind. So it's a, group of writers, and we just chip away at the business development, right? Having conversations about the book. We do the writing through the optimized process.
Oh.
And then I hold their hands through the whole publishing process as well.
Yeah. So powerful. And, I've learned so much from you, Ben, in the times that we've interviewed. So folks, please connect with Ben if you have any interest in writing and publishing a book, because he knows how to do it. And what he reminded me of is that when you take down one of those big books on the bookshelf, you usually just go to certain pages, we use books as reference. So why not break up the books, because I have Post-it notes sticking on all mine that I
Me too.
At. Yeah. So yeah, you absolutely spoke to my heart, Ben, and I really thank you so much. She started off the summit so well, and I miss you. So,
Thank you so much.
Moved to Spain and left us all behind.
Hooray for the internet. And Dumont, thank you so much. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here as always. And, really an extra honor to be able to kick off the summit.
Thank you, Ben. Appreciate it.
Okay, cheers.